In a perfect world, your camera coverage for a competition would include both wider angles to provide overviews of the action and tighter shots which accentuate the smaller details that highlight the skill and the intrigue and the human element. Now, due to budget or logistics reasons, you're only going to get a wide shot sometimes. And that's okay, but it makes it harder to communicate those little moments of intrigue and character as the storytellers. So today in vMix, I'm going to show you how you can take that wide and more effectively communicate those details to your audience. Before we get started, if you want to follow along hands-on, you can grab the project files I made for this video for free over on my Gumroad page. That's the vMix 27 Zoom In Buttons template, which contains a vMix project bundle and a companion config. Just enter 0, add to cart, and check out. If you're feeling extra generous, you're more than welcome to put a different number in there. So I recommend you pause the video, go download the files, get them opened up and set up, and then come back and resume. This template will only work on Companion 330 or higher and vMix 27 or higher. The vMix bundle I've created here is very, very lightweight. I'm just using a photograph I took of Pike Place Market as a stand-in for an example, but feel welcome to click on that input and replace it with a video file or some other image or whatever you want. Let's suppose we're looking at this wide shot and there's something on it that's small and interesting that we want to show our audience. But if you just show them the wide shot as it is, it's unlikely that they're gonna pick up on a minor detail unless they're being talked through it.
Wow, the clock says it's 5:18.
Or having a telestration show them what to look for. So then you might just be thinking aloud, well, can't I just zoom in on it? Short answer is yes, you can. And in vMix 27, that's now easier, lighter on resources, and possible to do a whole ton more with than you ever could before. Matter of fact, that's what I did right here, right now. Okay, here's the game plan. First, we make a copy of the input. Specifically, we make another input, and then we add the original as a layer on top. Secondly, we adjust the zoom and the pan on that layer. Thirdly, we merge to that adjusted copy, and the result is a zoom. Now, back on vMix 26 and older, when you were approaching this game plan, you'd have to, build a copy for, let's say, zooming in on the clock. And then if you wanted to zoom in on the letter P, you'd have to build another copy to do that. And then let's say you wanted to zoom in on the word market or just mark in the word market in this picture. And then that would be another input or two inputs. As copies, and so on and so forth, because every single look is like a combination of a zoom level and some anchor point that's formed by a pan X and a pan Y value. So even if you wanted like the same exact thing you're zooming in on, but at 3 different zoom levels, that's actually 3 different looks. Adding all of these copies can get resource intensive and, it takes a lot of time. And when you make a new project, if you want to do something similar, you have to completely recreate those same looks on the new project. But nowadays, we have better options. vMix 27 added a multitude of shortcut functions for adjusting zoom, crop, pan, and more on any layer of any input, which means we can almost entirely remove all of this work from the vMix project side and instead build all of that zooming and panning crop functionality into Companion or similar programs. And that way we can easily maintain and reuse it across projects. And all that's required on the vMix project side is just creating a mix input with 2 copies, just 2 copies of the desired input. And with that, we can create all the zoom points and all the zoom levels that we want. In my vMix 27 template, I've made 2 copies of the original input. And again, clarification, these are 2 color inputs where I've layered the original input on top of each one. Then I put those 2 copies into a mix input. And lastly, I use companion actions and feedbacks to target the input in the preview of the mix, change its zoom and pan using these new vMix 27 shortcut functions, and then merge the mix preview into the mix output. For my template, I made a 3x3 grid and a handful of zoom levels. By default, hot zooms, as I'm calling them, are enabled, meaning if you press a zoom level, it will immediately apply that on the current position. If you'd like, you can disable this, and then you'll have to select a zoom level and then a position to actually apply it. Now, if you've worked with these sorts of zoom pan adjustments before, then you may be aware that zooming in on the bottom left corner at 200% and zooming in on the bottom left corner at 300% actually require different values for pan X and pan Y. But thanks to the unitless values for these vMix layer adjustments, it turns out you can just make your pan values a function of zoom level, and that's why these buttons just work correctly across all the zoom levels. Thanks, math. I figured this out via experimentation, but I didn't really grasp the concept fully until my friend drew it out on a whiteboard for me. He's very cool, and you should go follow him. It's cd6__ on Twitter. I recommend that you play around with this template to get a feel for how the buttons work together, how you can chain some zooms together, how a slow zoom feels versus a faster zoom, and then adapt this template to whatever your creative vision has. For example, maybe you're working a VALORANT competition and you want to highlight information in the game's HUD, such as the minimap, or maybe you want to show how much health a player has, or that one of their abilities is coming off cooldown shortly. And speaking of HUDs, sports broadcasts basically have one when it comes to their scoreboard or their score bug. And one thing you probably want to call attention to at key times is how much time is on the clock. Another example of something you might run into is being a replay op and getting a super source or a composite where you got the action and then these player cameras overlaid on top of it. And interesting stuff might be going on, but it's really difficult for the audience to pick up on that unless you show them the celebration. Here's a guy holding up a sign with text, and now the audience can enjoy that moment because you brought it straight to them. So by now you should have everything you need to get started with experimenting and testing out your own ideas in the template. I kept this video at a reasonable length, so I didn't dive into all the corners of my companion config and how it all works exactly. But if you have questions about that, just let me know in the comments and I'll be happy to help you out. And please let me know what you use this for, like what kind of creative stuff you do with zooms and how you want to approach your storytelling, because I would love to know. Anyways, good luck out there and be well. We'll see you next time.